Hi everyone, welcome. What I have in these two black bins are some European nightcrawler worms, composting worms, that have been in these systems for 46 days. And our last check-in with these guys 13 days ago wasn't a very large feeding, and today is probably even a smaller feeding. All I have here is the two ends of a cantaloupe melon, and it's true that I've got leaves and my prepared bedding and some coffee that we can give them, so it's not all that skimpy. There's also some interesting material in here. At the bottom, you can see the age, 302 days, that the corn cobs have been going since these worms were given those corn cobs in their previous system that they were moved in here from. So I'm going to give these little guys a quick feeding today. Feeding number 5 going in. Looks like we've got some pretty good moisture going on. I was reminding myself a couple times now over the past few days that I've got to be careful about moisture in my systems, because all winter long I typically need to cover all my systems with plastic to make sure they don't have all their moisture sucked out by my heating system. While my heating system's running, it's forced hot air. It creates a very dry environment in the house, and that dry air in the house has this tendency to draw moisture out of things. So I have been noticing now that since the weather has started getting a bit warmer, the furnace is running a lot less, and all of my systems are doing a much better job hanging on to their moisture content. And that's good, especially in systems like this where the majority of the material is still just bedding. I mean, these systems are only a month and a half old, but some of my older systems where it's mainly castings anymore, I worry about too much moisture causing muddiness and unhealthy environments. So here I'm fairly certain when all is said and done, we're probably just going to go ahead and return the plastic covers, keep the system covered as good as we can get it, so that whatever moisture is in here can remain. But I've noticed in a few other occasions on some of my older systems, again I think is the good example, where it does seem like I've got to start allowing the systems to air out a little bit. And here I think keeping things nice and damp is actually to our benefit. I kind of broke the pattern that I usually follow, which is to first inspect the middle of the bin, which is where we last fed. That was the reason those two coffee filters were rested out in the middle, because I use the coffee filters as feeding zone indicators. Usually I'll go right for the spot where we last fed, and then later head to the outer edges of the system to aerate and check out the material, stir things around. But today I just figured I would kind of change things up a bit. So after 13 days, I'm curious to see if the feeding we gave them last time has many leftovers. We gave them stuff like grapes. I think there was carrot peel. There were certain things in that last feeding which I doubt we'll find any leftovers of, like the grapes. But here is already one of the 302-day-old corn cobs that came with the worms from their old system. Such a puny little object. It doesn't even look like a piece of corn cob just based on its tiny diameter. That's kind of cool how the worms are just able to go right through the side of the thing in between where some of the kernels attach, and then obviously through the hollow. Well, maybe not so obviously, but in the beginning when a corn cob starts getting consumed, the middle portion is evidently the portion that they're able to nibble out first. Perhaps it's softer, perhaps it's tastier, I don't know what the reason is. And then they like to get down into there. It's like their little private clubhouse. And I think these corn cobs are fragile enough that I want to be careful if I don't want to break them apart. Like this one right away, I could tell had this big huge crack down the entire length of it. And the thing would probably shatter if I applied any more force to it than what I did right there, just carefully trying to get it in my hands so that I can get it in front of the camera for you guys. But I do wonder how much longer they're going to be able to hold together. I think there's going to be a point where it's just going to be unable to hold together anymore, and then we'll have to just treat any such corn cobs as pretty much a done deal. Naturally, they will have just shattered into little pieces, which will continue and remain, but at that point they won't be cobs anymore, right? So I think that'll have to be the end of the test. Not that it was really any sort of a formal, serious test. It was just a point in time that we were able to check off in my spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet's been doing the work ever since, counting the days of how long those corn cobs have been going. And this here is the stem of a banana, but it's also that part that a whole bunch of stems to many bananas attach up to. It was kind of a tough chunk, good bit of juice inside of it though, considering how tough it is. But I was able to break it open. Here's another banana stem. Oh, and I just happened upon a fourth piece of corn cob. I thought we found all of them. 4 seems to be what's in here. Maybe there's more. I don't really have a good recollection of how many were placed into each system. Perhaps some have already gotten so weak and fallen apart that they're no longer recognizable as a piece of corn cob anymore. Perhaps there's other ones floating around that I just didn't happen to encounter while I was tilling things around, but who knows. We'll do the same thing over here in bin number 2, give the system a good aeration and tilling up. I guess while I'm at it, I'll be looking to see if I could possibly sense something that seems like a piece of corn cob. If I bump into any, then we'll gather those up too and check them out. But now that we're kind of doing a second bin that's been managed very similarly to the first bin, I do feel like I kind of know what to expect. At this point, I think we can pick up the pace and treat this more as a little bit of a production line, knowing that we're probably going to find some corn cobs, we're probably going to find some good moisture, little pockets of worms here and there, maybe some other various food leftovers that we can take a quick glimpse at, but at this point I kind of think I know what to expect, so I'm not really exploring anymore. At this point I'm just trying to get caught up to where we're at already in bin number 1. So here's the first corn cob fragment from bin number 2. That piece is very far gone. Surprising that I was able to zero in on it and identify it as a corn cob. I got a whole bunch of corn cobs in my freezer. Corn cobs that kind of got the same treatment that these corn cobs got. I believe that the only reason we were interested in keeping tabs on these corn cobs, setting up a counter in my spreadsheet and seeing how they're coming along and not breaking them up or interfering with their natural breakdown process, was because of that time that we invested into the beginning of them, which was to not simply throw them into the worm bins right after they'd been, stripped clean of all their yummy corn during some sort of a summertime meal. But what I did was I took the corn cobs and I soaked them, and then I froze them, and then I soaked them again. This seems like pumpkin, maybe. Pretty popular item. I'm surprised we didn't find something like that over in bin number 1. And I suppose it's only because I did invest a certain amount of time in the very beginning to the prep of these chunks of corn cob, and now that they're so far along, it seems like, well, we've come this far with them. Let's just see where it leads. Alright, so here it seems like I'm finding somewhat different chunks of material, little gooey kinds of pieces of maybe fruit or something. I don't know exactly what they are. And so far only 2 corn cobs. Not sure if perhaps we were rough in here and we busted up other corn cobs that were in here and are no longer single pieces anymore. They're just floating around in small pieces, possibly all eaten up already. Or maybe we just went a little bit too quick and didn't give ourselves enough time to track them all down. Well, whatever the case, doesn't matter. Time to give them their food. So in goes a little bit of bedding. In will go the food. Let's give them a little bit of coffee down here. Let's also throw in some grit. And I think the moisture levels are good in here, so I'm not going to go adding any moisture. If it was winter time, I would probably want to, you know, add some moisture, trying to counteract the drying tendency. But now that it's getting more and more humid, it seems like moisture is of no concern. Systems are going to do a-okay as far as moisture goes. Alright, so now I think I'm starting to find some of these unusual chunks of gooey material that we encountered in bin number 1. I knew they were pretty much set up the same, so finding something in one bin and not finding in the other would actually be a little bit unusual. Alright, enough of that. Let's drop these little guys down into the crevasse where the feeding was put. And following tradition, back on goes the feeding zone indicator. Alright, so same story here, I believe. Just cover up and level off. Perhaps now we'll happen upon, oh, here's some corn cobs we forgot to throw back down into the feeding zone. Did I miss any? No. Alrighty. There we go. This thing too, I don't know what this was, but it's finally soft enough to bust apart. I think in multiple previous check-ins, it just sort of kept holding out, remained very, very tough. And it was just this time I was finally able to do that to it, kind of break it apart and hopefully aid in its breakdown process. But as far as the corn cobs go, we won't be breaking up any corn cobs in these systems. We'll just let them go at their own natural pace. And at some point, if the pieces just can't hold together anymore, they'll just end up in fragments and won't be pulled out because they won't be recognized as single objects anymore. And you know, I've laid down a newspaper covering, which is usually the top layer, but I wanted to also put some leaves in, so I guess we'll follow through. I like the idea of throwing the leaves in. When I skimmed through the video from last time, it seemed like they hadn't gotten any. So that brings us to the end of today's video, everybody. Let's get these covers on and we'll be finished. So while I'm doing that, let me just really quickly say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. Oh, you know what? I do see flying insects. You see that little guy right there? And I saw a couple more earlier. I'm giving myself homework. Before I put these bins away, I'm putting some of my mosquito dunks on there. But that's boring. You don't need to see that. Video's over, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye now.